Folks, so if you can't tell at this point, all of my demos have a slight theme and they are about my cat Gordon. But I just wanted to briefly show you how you might animate a photograph or bring in photographic elements and animate them in your work. These are also tools, selection tools, or something you can use to, I don't know, make a building dance and like sway or a tree sway or whatever. So they're ways of manipulating your objects. But I just wanted to show you, I selected 3 photos of my cat where he had different viewpoints. So I have one where he is sitting up, and this is the one I'm going to be using for the animation, with kind of looking off in this direction. Then I have one where he's looking straight at me, but he's laying down, all right? And then one where he is looking off. I brought these into Photoshop, and then I used these tools over here, which are selection tools. You have the marquee tool, which is just geometric tools. The one I typically like to use is the magnetic lasso, which basically differentiates between lights and darks in your object. So I used the magnetic lasso, all right, and I just kind of came around and click, all right, if you need to encourage it in a particular direction. But usually if you have some pretty high contrast imagery, your lasso tool will differentiate between the light and the dark areas of this photograph, okay, and it wants to kind of adhere to a shape. It differentiates between pixels. Oh, poor little guy. I'm cutting off his whiskers, but I'm kind of going to rush through this just to show you how it works. There is a whole video on selection tools in that index of Photoshop tutorials that I posted on my Getting Started blog post with 2D animation. So if you would like to learn more about selection tools because you're going to be animating photographs, you can definitely go back to that resource and find a little bit more information on this. But anyway, using your lasso tool, when you get to the end, you either want it to have that little circle by your cursor, which means you're going to close it, or you could really go anywhere, all right, and then just double click, and it will close out the selection. So now that I've selected that part of the photograph, all right, I'm going to Command C, which is to copy, and then I'm going to bring it over to the program, the setup that I have over here. I already have these cut out, but if I didn't, I would just paste it in here. All right, obviously the head is very large, so if I go over to Edit and use Transform Scale, it will allow me to scale down my head to a reasonable size. Or maybe you're wanting to do something really absurd and kind of make the head a little bit larger. But now I have something that I can kind of mess with, right? Like I can kind of play around with this thing separate from the body and do some weird animations if I want to. All right, I don't actually need that head, all right? I've already cut it out. As we worked with healing tools in class, all right, so once I cut all the heads off the cat and have these different heads, right, the one looking off into the distance, the one looking straight at me, and then the one looking off, I retained the body of the cat, right, because I'm going to move the head around on this body, but I didn't want to have any seams. So if you'll notice when I zoom in really close, you'll see that I did kind of a sloppy job of using those healing tools to get to duplicate the blinds, to clean up the wood right here, and then just kind of make his fur look realistic. Poor little Gordon's been decapitated now. All right, so for these, this is staying consistent. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of all of these frames for now. Oh, yeah, okay, whatever. I should have exported this, but delete, yes, delete frames. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my cat with no head, all right, but I do have this head, have, ooh, that one's like a weird edit. This head with it, it's looking straight at me, okay, kinda, ish. And then one looking off. That's the bad one. There we go. All right. So, when I start my animation, all right, I can have obviously I'd want to like make sure that this took up my entire space or create a new background for him. I could always cut his body out and then do a drawing in the background or add another photograph. But that's going to be my first frame. I can now add a frame down here, all right, and if I am just moving the head, I can do that on the same layer. All right, so you'll see in this frame, layer 6, the head is here. In this frame, layer 6 is off. It's when I start to rotate the head with any kind of transform tools that I have to make a fresh layer. If it just is easier for you to make a new layer for every single frame, that is totally fine. So if you decide that instead of creating a new frame and then just moving that head over, you can create a new frame, create a new layer by option dragging this up. All right, and now I'm going to have copy 4 because I've obviously already been playing around with this. And now I can move this head. Oops, need to make that one invisible and move this head up slightly. Then I can make a new frame, drag this up, and transform, rotate, and twist it over slightly. Again, making that other frame invisible. Command T is your friend. That is a a shortcut to transform like a free transform, which allows me to rotate things. It also allows me to resize. Oh, there we go. To resize things, and it maintains the scale. So Command T as you're doing this will give you a little bit of a shortcut. I'm gonna undo that for a second. Command T, and I'm going to rotate the head that way. Oh, wait, I need to make a new frame. So you'll notice that if I make a new frame, Command T, and rotate this, that it has now changed my previous frame. So like I said, and hopefully this makes sense, if you make a new frame and just move the head, you don't need to make a new layer. The program allows you to just move things around from frame to frame with your moving tool. It's when you rotate things that you must make a new layer, and then you can rotate that little, well, now he looks like he's the exorcist cat, so I'm going to rotate it in this direction and move over and up. Okay, and so when I play this, oops. So sometimes when you're making new frames or new layers, they get turned on all of your frames. So you kind of have to go backwards and figure out which ones need to be turned off. Now this one has no head. So if that's layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, and layer 5. So, excuse me. It's really useful to obviously label these as you go as like layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, or keyframe 1, and then maybe you have, your next head is keyframe 2, and then the one looking all the way in that direction becomes keyframe 3, and then you have your in-betweens or breakdowns labeled, but anyway, that'll allow you to figure all this out. The other option, obviously, is just to create all your frames, or all your layers, and then make frame from layers over here, and then to go through and turn on the cat body. and in every single photo, in every single one of these. I'm going to turn, don't know why it did that. Gonna turn this one off and all the other ones. I cut the eyes out at one point because I was trying to make him look in a different direction, so we're going to delete that frame. So anyway, this one needs a little bit more finessing on my part right now. I had a good like layout, and then I came into work on this demo. But yeah, it just gives you the capability of kind of working with photographic imagery. It starts to look a lot like cut paper animation. I put that example of the more kind of cult classic, I think used to come on Cartoon Network, but Angela Anaconda, okay, or South Park kind of looks like this. So again, this is a way of maybe having three faces and like, you know, three faces with three expressions, or four faces with four expressions in different, you know, looking directions. And then you can use the puppet warp option to animate the body, and then all of a sudden it's like a full puppet. So these are just some strategies if you're wanting to do something that's a little bit more, I don't know, humorous or robotic. This is also a way to work with satire, so you could certainly be appropriating photographs of politicians or celebrities or whatever and playing with them on a canvas as if they're little paper cutouts. So anyway, lots of options for this, but this would be utilizing the selection tools over here. So first you have to do some cutouts and kind of pull all of your paper products, quote unquote, all of your paper cutouts into your file. So that's why I copy and then paste them in. And then you can start playing with them. You're going to want to keep an eye on how things are organized down here. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a silly move. I was getting a lot of laughs out of making little Gordon's head move around as if it was on a bobblehead. So yeah, photo animation.